Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to run through with you my stationery travel kit that I packed and brought with me on my recent 2-week trip to Japan. I tend to pack travel kits of similar sorts to bring with me for any length of vacation, even if it's like a weekend trip or a day trip, because I want to make sure I have some supplies with me if I want a journal or if I want to like send mail on the road. This one in particular was a little bit longer or bigger than I normally would bring because it was a 2-week trip, but I ended up not using as many of the items that I thought I would use. And so in today's video, I kind of wanted to call out what worked, what didn't, and what I would recommend bringing in a similar trip if you have one planned coming up. So let's start with like the journals that I brought. So if you've watched my Tech Chokaigi, which I'll link, you already know that I started the year with quite a handful of journals. I think I had 6 or 7 in my lineup. I'll do another video about like where I'm at with that. But long story short, I'm definitely not in 6 or 7 anymore. It's just, which I already knew to start, like it was a lot to keep up with. So when planning for the trip, or I guess planning what I wanted to bring the trip, I wanted to bring like my core journals, the ones I'm actively using. So what I ended up bringing is my 5-year, my A6 Take-a-Note, which has was originally my weekly memory planner, which is now changed into more like a general life planner setup, and then my A5 Sterling ink, which is my like weekly memory tracker. And my thought was one for the 5-year. I just wanted to be consistent. This is the one I want to be consistent, and spoiler alert, this is the one I actually stayed consistent in throughout the trip. I didn't write in it daily, but I backlogged the days that I missed, and it was never more than a couple days in between. This is the one I keep prioritizing because it's such short format that I have to put in here. There's not much writing that needs to be done. Sorry if that's not focused. There we go. It's less intimidating, and I just know I'm going to be thankful, like as I complete each day, especially when I'm looking back at years to come, that this was completed and that this didn't fall off. So this one I stay consistent, and I'm happy I brought it. The other two, my thought was, if I had time, let me see if I can pull up a page. So this was when I kept it as a weekly memory tracker, and then I kind of transitioned into a planner later on. As you can see, I fell off in some of the in-between pages. And then I started doing more planning in here, and my thought was maybe during the week of Japan, I could just jot like high level what we did that day. As you can see here, I ended up not doing that. I only have a little stamp, which I did after the fact. So this didn't end up being useful. And not that it wasn't useful, I just ended up not using it. And then my A5 is my weekly planner, which again, I didn't end up having time to complete. So as far as journals go, the 5-year was really the only one that kind of was used. And these two definitely did not need to be brought, but they were anyway. As far as traveler notebooks go, in my Techokaigi, I believe I share this, but I use a passport size traveler's notebook in olive as my everyday wallet, and I have loved it so far this year. I'll go into detail of that in a separate video, but this went with me on the trip. This actually just stayed with me at all times, and it was amazing, and I'll share more about that later. I did bring 2 regular size standard traveler's notebooks. One was kind of left out and about, another one I put in a pouch, which I'll show here. And I had to bring the Tokyo one to Japan. I didn't know if I was needing to write in it, but I had to bring it. And then this one, it's just one that I carry a lot when I travel. I ended up using it to hold extra inserts, and it just stayed its shape, just in case I was actively journaling. Even though I know I could purchase new inserts in Japan, I just wanted to come with them in hand, in case I couldn't visit a Traveler's Company store right away. And so my hope was to start my travel journal while I was in Japan, but another spoiler alert, that didn't happen. So I have a lot to back up, 2 weeks now to backlog, but it didn't hurt to bring, and I wanted to take pictures of it out and about. But yeah, this definitely did not go to use. It just stayed most of the time in my luggage. So really the only traveler notebook that was of much use was my passport. I'll go into detail too, like how I used all of that in a bit. As far as pouches go, I traveled with my Delphonics pouch, which is usually my go-to when I am doing trips. I mentioned earlier that for shorter weekend trips or just shorter trips in general, I like to keep everything within one pouch. So this is usually the pouch that I pack with me, and I try to keep everything within this single pouch. So in here, I had one of the traveler notebooks, the standard. I had some washies, and then I had this little folder from Traveler's Company with stickers that I pulled out of my collection that I thought would be useful to use in Japan. So Japan themed stickers, food stickers, travel themed stickers, that all came in with me. Again, because I didn't journal, did not put much use into any of that, but that stayed in there. And was actually, I thought, a pretty easy way to travel with a lot of stickers. It worked for me, but again, I ended up not using it anyway, but I was happy that I was able to bring a good amount. It didn't take up much room. So I brought that pouch with me. In here as well, I also had, some pens, some other supplies. I think I had some, I might have taken it out already. I had some, scissors, what else? Pens, some correction tape, some other tools, like a ruler was in there. So this kind of became a catch-all of all the supplies I needed or was going to use had I had time to journal. And then I also brought this smaller Superior Labor pouch that had additional pens, things that just couldn't fit there, like backups of double-sided tape, some clips, again, just odds and ends that didn't fit in my larger pouch. So those were the main two pouches I brought. As far as pens go, I did bring, I have a brush pen, some of my go-to pens that I use in my journals, like the Uniball, which I need to locate. This one, Uniball 1 pen. So I had those kind of more standard pens, and then I did bring fountain pens, just again in case, you never know, although I didn't end up using much of any. But I brought this little Superior Labor, I think it's called a tool pouch, and I had 4 pens in here. One I put away already. I brought these 4 pens. So I brought 2 Sailor pens, brought a TWSBI, and then I brought my Vanishing Point, Pilot Vanishing Point. I picked, this is in black, and this was a go-to I write my journal in. So that was assuming I had time to write in the journal. I knew I needed this pen. The TWSBI, this is, I think, it's a medium nib, I believe, and it writes more broad than my others, and I usually like using this for when I write headers, so I thought this would be a good pen to bring along. Sorry, that's staying out of focus there. Let's see. Nope, it still wants a focus on the pen pouch. So I brought that, and then I brought 2 Sailors just because, I guess. One was in a greenish, I think they're both in green inks, but I knew I like this color, it's a good go-to. So again, for journaling purposes, I brought that. And then this one specifically I brought is because it's inked with the color that I'm using this year for my 5-year. So I'm glad I brought that because this is the only pen that ended up being used. So that was my go-to for fountain, or what I brought for fountain pens. I kept it in a separate pouch because I don't know if this is a rule or someone just told me this, but when traveling with fountain pens, I believe it's best to keep them up straight standing up versus so vertical versus horizontal. So I kept it in this pouch, which was nice because it fit in my Delphonics. And then when I got on the plane, I took it out and had it sitting up in my purse that sat under the seat so that they stayed upright through traveling. So that's another reason why I kind of kept it in a separate pouch. Plus I just like keeping them separate. So this came along with me as well. And then as far as additional pouches or envelopes, I traveled with 2 Flatty pouches by King Jim, and then this is a new one, so I'll show you the one I ended up using, the Spiral Notebook V6 window envelope from Traveler's Company. This was our 3rd time traveling to Japan, so I was just I already came in knowing the amount of ephemera that I would collect just from my experience from my 2 previous trips. I mean, you can collect ephemera pretty much anywhere, but Japan, it's times 3 or 4 the amount that you would likely normally collect, just because there's just so many cute little things, and there's just paper in different places, the receipts. So I just knew it would add up quickly, and so I wanted to be prepared and equipped for that. So all these 3 were probably my other than my wallet, these 3 were my most used items, and came in handy for the entire trip. So to kind of do a quick recap before I hop into what was actually helpful, what ended up not really being used are my journals, the 2 standard traveler notebooks, and the contents of this pouch, other than a pen or 2, and this extra pouch. So all of these could have likely saved me room and stayed at home, but I was being, I'd rather be safe than sorry and have them in the event that I had a lot of downtime to journal. Now, to focus on the fun stuff about what was helpful during the trip, so I guess let's start where I left off. What I ended up using this for, and here's the actual completed folder, is every day. I had a page dedicated to every day of the trip, and I just tucked every receipt, every piece of ephemera that I collected, every odd and end made up one day, or from one day, was filed away in one of these pages. So we were there for, I think it was 14 days total, and this is only 12. So the last 2 days I kind of had to put elsewhere, but this really wasn't handy. Like, it was just a ritual by the end of the night. At the end of the night, I would take all the stuff out of my traveler's notebook, which this was really helpful to keep on hand. So I would, this stayed in the hotel room. This was out with me, of course, is my wallet, and I would just tuck receipts away, whether in this back clip, in this folders, just between the pages. I would tuck all of that away. Anything that was too big, and I'll show you what I did with that, I held elsewhere, but I would just pull out of there and then throw it in here. And this was a great way to kind of keep everything organized by day, so that when I'm ready to journal, I can just reference each page and then know it was, associated to a certain date. So this is something I highly recommend. I loved it so much. And what's great about it is I'll be honest with you, while I would love to journal right away and get the backlog done for this trip sooner rather than later, realistically, I probably won't get to it for another week or 2. But what's nice is everything's organized here. I can just kind of tuck this away until I'm ready to journal. And then I can easily reference what day of the trip I want to pull ephemera from, and everything's saved nicely in here. Now, for the bigger pieces of ephemera, I carry around this large, I think it's a large size. It's the it's 192 by 261 by 35 millimeter. I don't know what the official size is online, but I will link that, in the description below. This housed kind of all the larger pieces. Right now I see small ones because, to be honest, at the end of the trip, when I ran out of room in my traveler's folder, I just started stuffing things in here. But this is where I put, magazines, larger pamphlets, things that wouldn't fit in the smaller case. And then at the end of the day, I transfer that elsewhere as well. And so I would start the day with an empty traveler's notebook, passport, as far as ephemera goes, empty, and then empty case. And then I would start filling it up throughout the day, and then I would pull it out at night and put it to its new home. So this was really helpful. This was actually, I had a pretty big purse. It wasn't too big of a purse, but this was nice and light. And anytime I had excess ephemera, I threw it in here. Another thing I like this for is, in Japan, if you're not familiar, there's a lot of stamping stations, whether that be in museums or at train stations or at your favorite shop. And so I ended up leaving blank sheets of sticker paper in here, just as standard. I'll just pull it. I bought this online. Oh, that's regular printer paper, but I had this Joyberg sticker paper. I cut it up in half, and then I brought a handful of sheets of that in here, so that when I then saw a stamping station, this was easily accessible. I would pull out the sticker sheet, and then I would stamp, and then I'd put it right back in here. So this came in, and this was very handy for the trip, and I'm glad I brought that. I would bring that again. Another Flatty case that came in handy, which I only ended up using at the end of the trip, it was left in my luggage until I realized I brought it, was this smaller version, same concept, window and front. This Flatty is 122 by 172 by 35 millimeters. This I realized would have been handy for me to bring from the start of the trip, because it's such an easy way to store important documents, so passports, and then keep that with you. My bag has 50 different pockets, and I was constantly getting lost. Where are our train tickets? Where are our passports? And so it was at the end of the trip, I realized I had this, and I just kept this here, and it was just clearly, identifiable in the bottomless pit of my bag. and I knew my passports would be in here. I also liked it for adding the train tickets. So we took a lot of trains, subways in Japan, and you need the ticket to exit the subway. And so again, instead of getting that lost in a wallet or within the depths of my bag, I ended up putting the train tickets, like, right, pretend this is a ticket. It's much smaller than this, but I would put it right here. And then I just knew it was there at all times. I could also reference it while we were on the train, because it would tell you like what station you were going to get off in, especially if you pre-booked tickets or when the train would arrive. So this was another good go-to that I would recommend. Just these flat envelopes. It doesn't have to be Flatty brand. There's other brands that I've had. Here's an example of one I didn't bring, but it's brand new. I'm going to butcher the name. I think it's Nahi. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. This is another example of that type of clear folder that is helpful on trips like this. This one has fabric. This is all plastic. So really preference there, but I believe they were relatively the same price and something I'd highly recommend to bring along. Yep, so I went over, let's see, the passport. Like I said, I just shoved ephemera in there. That was helpful. These two, so that pretty much this traveled with me in my purse. And then as far as journals, like I said, for the 5-year, that's the one I was consistent in, because I didn't want to backlog too much. I wanted to kind of capture my like feelings for that day, because Japan is such a special place to us, and I wanted to make sure I was like in the moment when I was documenting how I like my highlights. And so I was pretty consistent filling this out. There was days I missed while on the trip, but anytime we had a long train ride, I would just bust this out with the pen and then catch up. So that was really helpful to have on the trip. I'm very thankful I brought that. So yeah, those were the kind of key players along with this spiral ring. A couple other things that were like honorable mentions. So while in Japan, I went to Daiso, and there's of course Daiso here where I'm based in Seattle and just in around the States. But so not that I had to go to Daiso, but it was just always a must stop while you're there. But I ended up getting these while in Japan, and they were great additions to kind of like my setup. So for this larger one, this is where I ended up transferring larger ephemera at the end of the night. Like it still even has the tag on it. It's an A4 zipper file in white. And so I had mentioned I would put large ephemera in this Flatty. I'd come home for the day, transfer everything from my passport to this, and then everything from my Flatty would go in here. And then I kind of just kept it organized by day. This envelope kind of just opens up like completely. There's no dividers, but I just, try to organize it so that I can go back and reference the ephemera piece, hopefully by day. So that was really helpful to have. I brought that up at Daiso, which ended up being less than $1, I believe, or maybe just add $1 converted from yen to USD. And then this smaller pouch, same exact, brand, I guess, and make, just a different size. I ended up using it later in the trip when I knew I had downtime on trains to write postcards. So which you'll see in later videos, I ended up purchasing quite a lot of stationery supplies while in Japan, a lot of postcards that I wanted to write while there. And so I would put the postcards in here. I had some stamps, and then I would bring this with me on the train, and I would just write postcards here. I would write postcards, I would pull it out and write the postcard, but it also was a great container to kind of keep open on the train, because it has the zipper edge. It kind of kept everything, even if the train is moving, it kept everything like in place, at least majority of it. So those were like honorable mentions I didn't bring with me, but they both were really helpful for the trip, and something I would probably bring again for future trips, especially because they kind of keep everything contained, and they don't bend the sides, which is nice, like the sides of whatever you have in there. The other call out, which I'll probably end up adding like a screenshot of in this video, is because I didn't journal daily, other than the 5-year, which my 5 years are more, I guess, highlight reels or highlight, I like call out the highlights of the day, but I also speak a little bit more to my feelings if I'm feeling happy, or like thoughts of gratitude go in here. So it's not really a play-by-play of the day, which is what I like to capture in my other journals, which I end up not completing. So to avoid, I guess, forgetting what I did each day, in lieu of writing that in my larger journals, I then kept my note app, like on my phone, my iPhone, open pretty much all day. And then I would type in, okay, we went here first, here's where we ate, here's what we did. And it was a daily tracker that I just digitally wrote, or I guess a digital journal for the time being, that I can then reference when I'm ready to sit back and journal in my actual A5 and then in my traveler journal. So that was also really helpful for the trip. So yeah, I think, I guess just to kind of recap all of it, what I learned, I definitely didn't need all the stuff. I was a little too optimistic, thinking I'd have time to do a full-on journal spread, although I'm not, regretting bringing all that stuff. But I think the key players really are everything you see here. This is what kind of held me through. I guess before I end there, another mention, sorry, I'm hopping all over the place, that was really helpful was having this sticker insert. So I had a larger sticker insert that I ended up actually keeping. I didn't put in my standard, I just kept in the back. Let's see if it's here. It's probably not in here, but I kept a regular sticker release insert in the back here. And then I had one in my passport. And that also was really helpful, because then I would, like, anytime we'd be, at a Starbucks or a drink place or 7-Eleven, I would just rip any sticky ephemera out and then throw it right in here. But it also was helpful for decorating the postcards that I was writing on the trip. So in my larger one, which let me grab real quick, in my larger sticker release, which again traveled with me each day, I just placed it right here. I kept, some washi tapes, some travel related stickers that I prepared prior to the trip, and this was great to use. I would rip it off, throw it on the postcard, and I had it available to decorate. So that was helpful. So yeah, so that all kind of was the MVPs stationery wise of the trip that I pulled and used, and I would definitely bring again. I'd probably leave the rest home, but I hope this was helpful. Sorry if it was a bit scattered. I'm literally in the middle of, if you could see my room right now, I'm in the middle of unpacking, or not doing much unpacking, just kind of staring at my stuff, hoping it unpacks itself. But I figured this would be helpful, so I wanted to film this on the fly. But if you have any questions or tips that you've learned on your own travels, I'd love to hear it too. Until then, thank you for watching this video. I have a lot of things to share from my Japan trip as far as hauls go, and then a little like stationery store recap. So that'll be coming soon. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one.